Hey there guys, in this video we're going to analyze some of the recent claims that Q is a PSY-OP. Guess what? I agree, Q is a PSY-OP, but maybe not in the way that you think. Let's talk about it. Alright guys, so in this video we're going to talk about some of the recent claims about Q being a PSY-OP. And many of these claims stem from a video put out by the YouTube channel American Intelligence Media just a day or two ago. They called it Q is a PSY-OP. So what I'm going to do is analyze some of the things that were said in that video, and then I actually want to talk to you specifically about what a PSY-OP is a little bit later in this vid. But first, before I get into analyzing this Q is a PSY-OP claim, I just want to say, from everything I've heard about that YouTube channel, American Intelligence Media, over the past couple months since I first became familiar with them, it's been nothing but positive, you know, and I'm not going to delve into the ad hominem, just chucking shit at each other, attacks that so many other people in the alternative media seem to be getting into. I am going to solely focus on the message and leave the messengers out of it. I don't know who they are, frankly. I really haven't watched any of their videos up until today, this Q1. So again, not attacking the messenger, just understand that. I'm just going to analyze what was said in the video. So I have a few quotes here and a few questions that come to mind after watching that half-hour vid about Q being a PSY-OP. So here's a couple of the quotes and my thoughts on that. One of the claims, and this was within the first couple minutes, they said, "Those who follow Q know there was an original Q, and then there was a force that took over Q, a PSY-OP Q." So I actually am very confused by that statement, because apparently there, you know, that just seems to be some kind of like linguistic programming in that very statement right there, and that sets the tone for the rest of the video. They're claiming, yeah, if you follow Q, you know this thing. Well, I've been following Q, and I don't agree with that at all, actually, and I'm sure a lot of other people out there might think the same thing as that. So, to preface the video by saying what people should think in that regard, just very odd to me. And, in fact, from my opinion of Q, you know, there's been a few trip code changes because people were trying to hack into the Q account on 4chan, 8chan, and whatnot. And yes, there's been a couple fake Q posters, but those get snuffed out very easily because maybe there's an anomaly in the trip code or something to that effect. But to say that there's been like two or three legitimate Q changes, and this Q is, or this fake group has been posting for weeks and weeks, and then they change and there's like a third group posting for weeks and weeks, that makes zero sense, right? Because if the original Q got compromised, even if it was like a couple weeks in mid-November, I think somehow we would have found out. That Q group would have tried to contact somebody somewhere and say something about it. So I just don't vibe with that, right? I don't vibe with that statement. We got my handy dandy notepad. Claim number 2. This one was at about 2.5, 3 minutes in. This one said, and this kind of was their claim that Q was a PSY-OP, and that also set the tone for the rest of the video. They said that they were contacted, they being who's ever running this American Intelligence Media YouTube channel, they said they were contacted by the original Q group over the weekend, and that it's all valid, I'm assuming meaning that the new Q posters are some big PSY-OP. But it was weird. They said they got a phone call, but they kept saying they won't disclose the details. They actually, I heard that a few times throughout the video from about multiple concepts. They're not going to disclose details, won't go into the details, which, yeah, I can understand that in some regards, but if your whole video is premised around Q being a PSY-OP, and apparently you got some details about that, but you won't disclose that, it's like, where's your, you know, you need the sauce, bro. You gotta provide the sauce if you got these big claims. But not only that, was that, didn't Q, like months ago now, I'll see if I can find that drop on 8chan and post it up here, but didn't Q say no comms outside of this channel, that channel meaning 8chan, like they're not going to communicate with anybody. And that was around the time when some Twitter handles started coming out. I think one said like I am Q, which is totally misleading. So with that being said, I mean, if the Q group is saying no comms outside of this, but now you're saying, oh, we got some communications from the Q. I mean, again, you see what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense there. And especially, why would they particularly choose, I mean, if hypothetically the Q collective was going to reach out to the public, it's just like, I need a reason why they would particularly choose this YouTube channel with like 60,000 viewers. It's, you know, gonna reach not a massive audience, a good-sized audience, but you see what I'm saying? Again, more things that just don't make sense. And there's a few other ones that I have written down. I don't really want to get into too much of it. You guys are kind of getting my point, my analyzing in this video. But last thing that I did notice, not only in that original like Q is a PSY-OP video that I've been discussing, but a couple of the recent ones after that, I was just, you know, once I was like, oh, this is American intelligence media, I'm going to check them out a little bit. One of the common things they've been saying about the past couple of days, they've been like naming names in the alternative media community, and then they've been, one of the big threads is like the question they keep asking, how do these guys get their funding? How do these guys get their funding, right? All these people that, just because they're not talking about what we're talking about, the senior executive services, just because they're not doing this, must mean they're a shill. How are they, I remember one quote, it's like, how are they flying around the country and doing all this stuff? Being independent media, who are they funded by? The SES, Soros, yada yada. And again, it's like, where's your sauce? Where's your evidence? Why are you stooping to those kind of ad hom attacks, right? And if you're gonna ask all these things, why can't we ask them directly back at you? Like, what are you funded by? Why don't you show your face? I mean, these, you know, questions, legitimate questions I have. If you're going to be claiming these things, we have the right to ask you the questions as well. I can tell you completely how I get funded myself. You'll notice that I've had a couple sponsors on this YouTube channel lately. They've been helping me out while I go through the demonetization issues that'll probably never let up. So I thank you guys for watching those videos and whatnot. I also have a Patreon account. I also do webinars. I'm completely self-funded, right? I don't take any money from the SES or Soros or all that. And you can tell my authenticity because I show my face. I do live YouTube videos. I know that that authenticity is going to show, and it's going to assist me in talking about all these things, because then, of course, can't really call me a shill or like I'm hiding behind pictures or videos on the internet or whatnot, hiding behind a keyboard. So that's just my analyzing of that video and the arguments presented in that. There's just things that don't make sense. So now let's move on from talking about that video just into getting into some of the common questions and things I see posed that people are confused about out there on the interwebs about what's going on with Q. There's a lot of things that I see people ask, and I just did an interview earlier today with a good friend of mine, Troy Casey, on Facebook, and he was playing devil's advocate in this interview, and he brought up a lot of good points I just wanted to reiterate here. One of the common things I heard of is that, well, if Q is this insider with these connections or whatnot, being in the military or an intel agency, then he's doing an illegal thing. What he's doing is high treason. So how can this be real? Because if these were real intel drops, boom, you know, this person would be in jail. But think about it, right? A, there would be, well, authorization to do so from the highest levels. So I think that would easily avoid the issue. And two, one of the reasons that everything has been phrased as questions and riddles and whatnot is the fact that it helps get around some of those legal matters, right? You just post things as a question. I believe recently James Woods was the Hollywood guy who's pretty conservative. He has a awesome Twitter account. He was taken to court and he got out of the, he was not guilty because he simply phrased his tweet as a question. It wasn't a statement, it was a question. So he actually got out of the court case. He won it, or he wasn't found guilty because of that. It wasn't libel, it wasn't slander. You see what I'm saying? So the fact that Q poses so many things as a question helps to bypass the legality issues in many ways. And it also just gets us to do our own damn research, but that's just one common thing I see put out there I want to talk about. Another one is, why haven't we seen arrests yet? Why haven't we seen arrests yet? What about these sealed indictments? And there's a lot of things I have to say about that. But the main thing is that understand the scope of this. Guys, this is the takedown of a deep state, shadow government, cult, elite group that's been in power for, or gaining power, infiltrating into the power structures of our world for decades, centuries, millennia. This is not just your average round them up and ship them to Gitmo type of thing, right? And not only that, but you got to understand how deep this has been infiltrated and how many people there are. So if the Marines were to just go to John Podesta or Hillary Clinton's house tomorrow and arrest him, that's gonna botch a lot of shit. And a whole operation, multiple operations, okay? It's not that easy. And also, this is one thing that popped into my mind over the weekend, you also need to understand the amount of people and groups that are white hats that are in this alliance behind the scenes that are working to do this as well. The Q group, obviously, they're popular, they have connections, and there's a lot of stuff going behind the scenes with them, right? But they're not the only alliance group trying to do some damage to the cabal or fight in this battle in good versus evil. Okay? So, yeah, this Q group over here, but maybe you have another faction in the alliance of like a contingency over here, or a faction over here, here, right? So there's a lot of, and it's really difficult because of how compartmentalized everything is. I mean, these people that are white hats are keeping everything hyper secret. So secret, right? So not only do they want, the cabal won't find out what's going on, but maybe there's like another white hat trying to do some work behind the scenes, but because everything's so secret and compartmentalized, they don't know, and they don't talk to each other about it, because that's not something you're just going to bring up in normal conversation. So there's like multiple reasons. You kind of see the picture I'm painting here. This, not only is the cabal taking a lot of years to get where they are, but these white hats, these alliance guys, they've been fighting this fight for a long time, and there's many groups behind it, and the cabal, of course, is infiltrated very deeply, so these multiple groups they got a real tough job to do. So that's another thing I wanted to address. Sorry, I'm kind of going off the top of my head here. I wanted to address the reason no arrests have been public in that regard. Did that. Wanted to address the, why is it legal, legality type of thing. I did that. Let's see, what else? Man, if I could only go live on this YouTube channel, that'd be really easy. I could get some comments on here. But maybe I'll do that on my backup channel. Speaking of which, if you don't subscribe to my backup channel, go do that, because, they could still take this one away at any time. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it that I wanted to do. Another thing, last thing, is that Q, the group, the collective, the White Hat Alliance faction Q, they're not perfect. Okay? A lot of people are like, oh, we heard this and it didn't happen. We heard this and it didn't happen. It's like this one little thing that didn't happen is being blown way out of proportion to all the things that did, and all the things that are making sense, and all the things, all the dots that are connecting. Okay? So, and with how complex this all is, okay, maybe something is proposed or said it's going to happen by Q on 8chan. It might not happen. there's a lot of pieces in play. It's a very complex situation. So, okay, maybe this arrest wasn't announced or we didn't see this thing manifest. Well, one, maybe it didn't manifest on a mainstream level, but it actually happened behind the scenes. There's probably 95% of stuff going on behind the scenes that we just don't hear. And secondly, yeah, if it doesn't manifest, I understand. They're probably having to change their plans all the time. But understand, the amount of dots that have connected in the near 1,000 posts now on 4chan and 8chan by Q make a lot of sense. And also with that being said, if Q was a PSY-OP in a negative regard, words on PSY-OP in a sec, if Q was a PSY-OP in a negative regard, pretty shitty PSY-OP, right? Like, it's a real bad PSY-OP. Because Q is getting so many people to wake up, to start researching, to start spreading research, to start memeing everything and just spreading that shit like wildfire on the internet. It's a bad PSY-OP if the PSY-OP had ill intentions. And that brings me to the very last thing I want to talk about here is PSYOPs. I want to define that word and try to give you a little more perspective on what a PSYOP and propaganda exactly is. PSYOP, let's just take the word for what it is. Psychological operation. That's everything. Nearly every single thing is a PSYOP. Q is a PSYOP by that literal definition. He's just trying to put information out there and help us connect the dots in our own psychological minds. So yeah, Q's a PSYOP. I'm a PSYOP. I spout propaganda all the time. Is it nefarious? Is it for a nefarious agenda or ill-intentioned propaganda? No. But by the literal definition of propaganda, yes, I'm putting out information all the time for specific narratives and specific agendas. What is my narrative and my agenda? Truth, freedom, understanding, raising consciousness. So my propaganda, my psychological operation, isn't a nefarious one. Try to make it be as benevolent as possible. So is Q a PSYOP? Well, yeah. It's a propaganda war we're in. Both sides are trying to use their propaganda against each other. Evil propaganda, that is a nefarious PSYOP, and we have good propaganda. That is, I would say Q, me, many other YouTubers out there. People on the internet, just trying to get the truth, information out there. So, I just wanted to make a note on that really quick, just to define PSYOP, right? Understand what a PSYOP is. Understand what propaganda is. It's not inherently negative. It's the intentions of which that are negative. So, yeah, Q's a PSYOP. Maybe I'll just name this video Q's a PSYOP, and then it'll take you up till this point in this video to understand what that means. That'll be clickbait as heck, though. That'll give me some views. Maybe I'll do that. But anyway, that's it for this one, guys. Ranted probably far longer than I wanted to. And all the YouTubers out there, if you make claims, you know, I'm all for freedom of speech, all for freedom of discussion, for everybody to debate, but you need to produce the evidence and just make it logical, sensical. That's what we're all trying to do here, I guess. Definitely what I'm trying to do. See you guys soon.